Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead, and we're continuing to read in our book, The Legend of the White Raccoon. This is a DJ Dillon adventure series by Lee Roddy. And yesterday on chapter 10, when we ended up, that man, Sky, had grabbed a hold of DJ, and DJ was now running down the hill as fast as he could, trying to get away from Sky. So, chapter 11, The Desperate Struggle. DJ heard an angry whisper behind him. "Won't do no good, kid." Sky removed his fingers from the flashlight so the full beam hit DJ's back. "I'll outrun you in 5 seconds. Then you're going to pay." The light created a huge shadow of the slender boy, desperately plunging down the mountainside, chased by the man with outstretched arms. The heavy clumping sound of Sky's boots behind him made DJ run all the harder. But as he raced under a giant ponderosa, DJ's boots slipped on the carpet of slippery pine needles. His legs shot out from under him. He fell hard on his back. Flecks of bright light and little shooting stars exploded in his head. DJ tried to leap up, but the flashlight bore into his eyes, blinding him. "Gotcha!" Sky's powerful right hand plunged viciously through the light's beam for the boy's throat. DJ didn't think, he just reacted. Desperately, he threw up his right arm. It hit the flashlight. It sailed up the air, twisting away rapidly. The trees seemed to leap to life. They appeared to move in all directions as if fleeing from the scene. Then the light turned earthward. It twisted down, making more fearful, leaping shadows. The light hit hard, lenses down. DJ heard the sound of breaking glass. The light went out. Instantly, total darkness smothered DJ, but he could feel the man's high hands trying to grab him. DJ heard Sky's heavy breathing. Again, without thinking, DJ acted. He rolled sideways, ignoring the sharp pine needles and the short pine needle points of a pine cone. He rolled onto his hands and knees and leapt to his feet. A powerful hand groped in the blackness. Through his stocking cap, DJ felt strong fingers closing down hard. He ducked his head and ran away. The cap slid off. Cold air struck his scalp like a razor, but DJ didn't care. He bent low and ran hard through the thick darkness. "Help!" DJ call pierced the night and echoed off the sides of Devil Slide Canyon. But there was no answering shout. There was only the puffing of the angry man behind him. DJ smashed into a low-lying branch. He felt long pine needles scrape his cheek. Instinctively, the boy jerked his head away. He twisted sharply to the left and fell over a downed limb. He sailed through the blackness, throwing his hands up to protect his head against hitting a tree trunk. But he landed in a shallow ravine. It was still moist from the recent frost and rain runoff, so the muddy bottom was slick as a frozen mountain pond. "Oh!" DJ yelled as his feet shot out from under him. He slid down the ravine faster than a toboggan on packed snow. Frantically, DJ reached to the right to grab something to stop his mad ride. His gloved hand touched small shrubs or tree limbs, but they were gone before DJ could close his hands. Faster and faster he flashed through the thick, slick ravine. His legs smashed into invisible obstacles that twisted the boy's body but didn't slow him down. He felt his pants snag on sticks, stones, and tree roots, but nothing stopped his mad slide. Then he heard something else ahead, a waterfall. Terror ripped a strangled cry from his mouth. "Oh no!" DJ was sliding straight into Mad River. toward the Mad River. He recognized the sound of Rainbow Falls. In an instant, the boy realized he was in one of the ravines that fed the pools. He had often fished for rainbow trout there. It was a 20-foot waterfall. There were huge boulders just below the falls. Those boulders could break the boy's back or crunch his head like an eggshell. "Oh, Lord, no!" The desperate prayer escaped the boy's lips as he grabbed frantically into the night. But his heavy right boot hit something so hard his whole body was jerked violently aside. His right foot stayed where it was while his other leg and body were thrust viciously into the night air. He realized instantly his foot was caught on a tree trunk. But before DJ could do more than throw up his hands to protect his face, the right side of his head hit something, a glancing blow. His right ear felt as if it had been torn off by the raw bark of a tree trunk. Then the whole world seemed to explode into shooting stars, and DJ lay still in the night. He opened his eyes to feel something wet and cold on his face. Still stunned, he brushed at the wetness with his right hand. Snow was falling so thick and fast that the whiteness made little pinpoints of light in the darkness. Where am I? What happened? The thought took a moment. The pain in his right ear brought back the memory. He gently touched the ear with his gloved hand. It hurt. Probably was bleeding too, but it wasn't fatal. DJ knew the most important thing was to get away. He started to stand, but he sank back down with a moan. "Oh, my foot!" Gingerly reaching through the blackness, ignoring the fast-falling snow on his face, DJ felt his right foot. It was wedged between two tree roots. Carefully but quickly, the boy's fingers searched for a way to free his foot. A nearby branch moved softly in the darkness. It couldn't be the wind. There was none. There was only the strange stillness that came with an early snowfall. DJ froze, gloved hands resting on the boot, his ears strained to hear. At first, he heard only the rushing of the little waterfall as it plunged into the river. The nearby brush had quit moving, as though someone or something also stopped dead still, listening. Then DJ caught a faint noise of breathing. It was so close the boy felt he could have reached into the blackness and touched the big chest from where the heavy sound came. Instantly, DJ held his breath. He didn't even take a breath, but just stopped breathing. He wished he could still his pounding heart, which thumped in his ears. Woof! DJ heard what startled the wild bears before. The bear was within a few feet in the darkness. DJ opened his mouth to yell, partly from fright and partly to scare the bear away. But the bear woofed again and spun away into the darkness. It smashed noisily through the brush away from the ravine. Sky's voice came from close behind DJ. "Nice try, kid, but you can't fool me with that trick. I'll get you yet." DJ's pursuer rushed forward, in the fast-falling snow. Sky took a startled breath when there was suddenly no ground under his feet. DJ heard the man's body land solidly in the ravine where DJ had just been. There was a terrible shriek as the man's feet flew from under him. "Whoa!" Sky hurled by DJ and down the last few feet of the ravine. DJ couldn't see a thing, but he knew from the sounds when the man was near the top of the waterfall, No! The cry from the ravine's end told DJ the man was airborne into the night. A second later, there was a big splash. The boy strained to hear more, but there was only the sound of the river as it returned to its normal whirling and plunging. For a long moment, DJ hesitated. Now was his chance. He could finish freeing his foot and run. He could run back to the deputies and Brother Paul. A desperate cry split the night, a sputtering gasp from the deep pool of Rainbow Falls. Help! It came only once. Then the swirling waters drowned out everything. DJ hesitated and wondered, what should I do? Suddenly, someone on the riverbank below DJ and to his left snapped on a flashlight. The beam probed towards the pool below the falls. DJ couldn't see who held the flashlight. Neither could he see the pool, but he clearly saw a flashlight's beam that the air was filled with huge, fast-falling snowflakes. From the way they sank straight down, DJ knew they were heavy with water. The boy finally jerked his foot free from the tree limb and carefully stood up. His ankle hurt, but it wasn't broken. It would be okay, like his ear. DJ glanced towards the river. For the first time, he could see the bottom of the falls in the flashlight beam. Sky was being tossed about on the foaming water like a cork on a stormy sea. Violet swirls of blue-green water dashed themselves in white foam against the partly submerged boulders. A big whirlpool sucked Sky under. DJ made up his mind. I've got to help him. DJ's eyes turned down to try to see some way down from the little cliff's top where he stood. He started running, but his foot hurt. He slowed to a hobble, moving away from the ravine so he wouldn't fall in again. He picked his way towards the river, helped by the faint glow of the flashlight reflecting off the trees. DJ stopped a few feet back from the top of the cliff top. He leaned forward and glanced below to find a way down the steep granite sides to help save the drowning man. But there was no way except to jump into the river, and that meant DJ would be in the same terrible spot as the drowning man. Desperately, DJ's eyes went to the flashlight. Only one light, one person. But who? One of the deputies? Brother Paul? Alfred? DJ breathed the name aloud. Then he cupped his hands over his mouth and yelled, Alfred! But his friend couldn't hear above the roar of the waterfall. Alfred was moving up toward the pool, obviously trying to help Sky. DJ glanced down to his feet, too steep. He'd break a bone trying to get down that way. DJ looked upstream. That was worse. He gazed downstream. That was the only way. DJ started feeling his way along the cliff overlooking the river. He caught another glimpse of his friend below. Alfred's light showed Sky whirling in the water. DJ saw the beam flicker from place to place on the ground. Then Alfred reached out and picked up a long broken limb. Alfred's light flipped back to the churning white water under the waterfall. DJ saw the limb lowered towards Sky. He grabbed for it. Alfred was almost jerked into the river as Sky desperately hung on. DJ cupped his hands around his mouth. Hang on, Alfred! I'm coming! Don't fall in! The roar of the raging river smothered his words. DJ had to watch where he was going, so he lost sight of his friend and the rescue effort below. It seemed to take DJ forever to pick his way down to the waterfall's beginning, to the deer trail at the riverbank. The flashlight reflected beam didn't help here, DJ realized. He sat down fast and scooted down the small deer trail. When DJ was on his feet beside the river, He hobbled towards the flashlight beam. DJ felt the stones under his feet. He heard the roar of the water from the falls, but he couldn't see Alfred or hear him. DJ couldn't see Sky either. Only the flashlight was in sight. DJ hurried to where it had fallen between the rocks beside the White Water River. The light beam shot into the night sky, showing fast falling snowflakes. DJ snatched up the light and flashed it quickly over the water and over the river. "Alfred, where are you?" There was no answer. Desperately, DJ threw the light's beam along both banks and back to the water, but he saw nothing except the wild river surging past. Feeling new fear, DJ scrambled over the smooth river stones, being careful so he wouldn't plunge into the foaming water or drop the flashlight. "Alfred? Alfred!" he called, stopping where he'd seen his friend extending the tree limb towards the man in the boiling pool under the falls. There was no answer. Again, DJ snapped the beam in every direction. It skimmed over the water, which had earned the name Mad River. The light flipped along the far bank, leaping from rock to rock, boulder to boulder, stump to stump. Nothing. DJ snapped the light back to the riverbank where he stood, panting in the night. His mouth was dry from the terrible fear. There was no sign of the man and no sign of Alfred. DJ saw nothing but fast falling snowflakes. DJ slanted the light downstream. When the water left the pool, it surged into a whitewater rapids. Probably nothing could live long in that short, violet section, with half-submerged boulders and leaping sprays of foaming blue-green water. About 100 yards downstream, beyond the light's end, DJ knew the stream leveled out to a deeper, quiet, fast-flowing current. He hurried along the bank, holding the light so it would penetrate the darkness. He stopped only where the water rounded the curve in the walls of Devil's Slide Canyon, and there was no more trail. DJ started back upstream along the bank, flashing the light over the water. About 50 yards back from the curve, a light glistened on something. "Oh!" DJ moaned at recognizing two pieces of tree limb rocking over a couple of submerged boulders. That was the stick Alfred had been reaching out to save Sky with. The two pieces were caught by the swiftly moving current. They raced downstream and out of sight around the curve. DJ tried not to think about it, but he knew that when the branch broke, it might have thrown Alfred into the swiftly moving river. Maybe the man and boy had held the stick together at that moment and had been swept downstream. It was no use. DJ sagged, breathing harder, his chest aching with exertion and despair. A few minutes ago, Alfred had been okay. Now he was gone without a trace, and so was Sky. Unconsciously, DJ let the light slip. The beam hit a small eddy. Let me read what an eddy is, okay? A current that flows differently from the main stream of water. An eddy usually has a whirling motion. Behind a half-submerged cottonwood stump, something winked at DJ from the water's line. He took a couple quick steps and held the light closer. A pair of thick glasses reflected at him. Alfred's glasses. One lens was under the water. DJ reached down and picked up the glasses by the piece that went over Alfred's ear. DJ straightened up, staring in horror and disbelief at what he held in his hands. Suddenly, feeling sick, DJ slipped his best friend's glasses into his coat pocket. His legs crumpled. He sank weakly upon a large, smooth boulder by the river's edge and snapped off the flashlight. It was sudden darkness. DJ heard the river gurgling by. He felt heavy snowflakes falling silently, faster and faster on his bare head. Blackness such as DJ had never known settled over him. He let his head sink heavily to his knees. His whole body shook, and it wasn't from the cold. Well, no answers yet, but that's the end of chapter 12. So I'll be reading to you again tomorrow. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house, out of your house, in the day and the night. Whatever you do, keep dreaming and keep a story in your heart. All right. Good night.